Hey CMS, welcome to my room / home office. Usually you'll find me sitting on this lovely yoga ball. You're on a card table, and this is just what life looks like right now. But Frank and I, we miss you so much. We wish we were together, but we're excited that you joined us this week as we're right in the middle of a series that we're calling Big Picture. We've been talking a lot about how in life, sometimes we miss the bigger picture, and we see things only from our perspective, which means you only see one part of the story sometimes, and that causes us to miss the rest of what might be happening, the bigger picture. See, before we jump into today, I want to ask you a really important question. How often do you do the right thing? Okay, don't shout your answers here, especially if you're muted. You could do it if you're muted, I guess. But just think about that for a second. How often do you actually do the right thing? And how often do you actually choose to do it? See, I think many of us would admit at least a few decisions we can look back on and say that we knew the right thing to do and we did the opposite. I will speak for myself, unmuted, I know that I have. I remember when I was in middle school, I cheated on my first test ever. And we all know, right? Cheating is wrong. Don't cheat, don't cheat, don't cheat. There's like signs everywhere, things, don't cheat. But I hadn't studied for this test, and I was the type of kid, when I was in middle school, I liked to get good grades. And so I was like, I'm going to get a good grade no matter what. And I remember very distinctly sitting in class. I probably was sweating profusely. The people around me probably were like, that girl did not put deodorant on because look at how much she's sweating and smelling, because I was probably so nervous and I kept looking around. I'm sure my teacher could have sniffed me out just by the looks of me. And I remember it was a vocab quiz in middle school. I hadn't studied and it was multiple choice. So, very easy to cheat off of somebody who's next to you. And I remember distinctly really looking over and copying the answers down and trying my best to be like, why isn't my glasses prescription stronger that I can't quite read all the letters? And it was awful, guys. I mean, I smelled. I probably looked so suspicious. Don't be suspicious. Don't be suspicious, Okay, anyways. But we can all agree on one thing today. Doing the right thing isn't always easy. Because sometimes choosing the right thing means not choosing the fun or the exciting or the popular thing. And sometimes it's a thing that we really want to do. But that can make choosing the right thing in any situation a really hard decision to make. And I honestly think it's because doing the right thing usually costs us something. It costs us something big and sometimes something small. Think about it. So the right thing to do is to be honest with your parents, right? Your coaches or your teachers. But if you are, sometimes you'll get in trouble for what you did wrong. And doing the right thing will have a consequence or a punishment that will definitely cost you something. The right thing is to help your siblings out, especially during COVID, with homework, entertaining them so mom and dad can be on calls or run to the store. But you honestly just don't feel like dealing with them. I'm with them 24/7. Why do I have to spend more time with them? But sometimes doing the right thing will cost you some freedom. That the right thing isn't always to say yes to that guy or yes to that girl, right? But doing the right thing will cost you the relationship. And that feels like too high of a cost. And sometimes the right thing to do is to be honest about a feeling in a relationship. But if you do, you might end up in a fight or a fallout with a friend, and especially when you can't be together, it makes it that much more complicated. See, that conflict, it may cost you something that you don't want to pay. See, when I cheated on that test, I got caught, and it cost me something. It cost me my character, my reputation, and my grade. I got a 0 on a major test, and I remember being sent to the principal's office, mortified that I was caught and I was in trouble. And it was awful, awful, awful. And when I look back, it cost me something to not do the right thing. See, the list can go on. And the reality is we've all been in situations where we would have choose to do if we're going to do the right thing. Sometimes doing the right thing feels really easy, like it's an obvious choice. And other times doing the right thing is really complicated. When we start to count the cost of doing the right thing, suddenly the choice isn't always clear. And sometimes it's difficult to do the right thing when we simply don't know what the right thing is to do, actually. So here's the question. What can we do today, right now, to help us be prepared to do the right thing no matter what? Even when it's difficult, unclear, or going to cost us a lot. How can we make decisions today that will have a positive impact on a bigger picture of our lives? So we're going to take a look at Joseph again. and he is one of the most famous figures in the Bible. And we're going to take a look at his life and how we have the privilege of seeing the big picture. We see the whole story from beginning to end. But at the time, right, Joseph was living in it. He could only see what was right in front of him. And he started out as this guy who we talked about last week with Frank, was in conflict with his brothers. He wound up thrown in an empty well, sold into slavery, not the happiest family life, as you can imagine, but God had big plans for Joseph, even in those moments. And there was a bigger picture that Joseph couldn't yet see, a picture that was pretty incredible. So incredible that we're still talking about him thousands and thousands of years later. And so thankfully we get a front row seat of another historical figure named Moses, who decided to write down all these stories. And on these records called Genesis, which is part of the Old Testament in the Bible, in that book, Moses wrote the story of Joseph's life in great detail. And one of the things he wrote about gives us an idea about how to do the right thing when the right thing is hard to do. We're picking up Joseph's stories right after he was sold into slavery to a group of traders. See, Joseph was eventually bought by a pretty powerful Egyptian named Potiphar. And this guy was a big shot in government. He was the captain of Pharaoh's guard. And after some time of working with Potiphar, Joseph was put in charge of Potiphar's entire house and everything he owned. He was like second in command. So even though Joseph was in a bad situation, things seemed to be turning around from him, right? Well, this is where the story starts to take a turn. Look at what happens next. Now, Joseph was well built and handsome. And after a while, his master's wife took notice of Joseph and said, "Come to bed with me." And that's in Genesis 39, 6 and 7. So can we talk about this for a second? Joseph was a good-looking dude who was working really hard for his boss, Potiphar. And when suddenly Potiphar's wife took notice, he's like, "Oh, I see you." And just like that, she invited him to do something that was meant only for her and her husband, not her and Joseph. And Potiphar's wife was basically inviting Jesus to have an affair with her. And if we think about all that it's a very, very pretty complicated invitation. Now let's just put it in our present day context, okay? This is like your best friend's boyfriend or girlfriend texting you, DMing you, Snapchatting you, snail mailing you these days, whatever it looks like, throwing rocks at your house, right? He's asking you to hang out on the side, kind of secretively. Nobody needs to know about it. And sure, they might be cute, but they're with your bestie, not you. And so having them have to sneak around and hang out on the down low isn't a great situation to be in. It's an invitation to something you know isn't right. And the same was true for Joseph. There was a lot at stake with him. He could have easily been given into temptation. That Potiphar's wife was like, "Hey, come sleep with me." But he could have let the invitation go to his head. That, wow, like, I'm so desirable. Somebody wants to be with me. He could have considered that he could have gotten away with it. He probably could have gotten away, and he's second in command. He would have this great wife or a great woman, and all things would be good. And ultimately, all these little things, right, choices could have led to having an affair with Potiphar's wife. But they would have cost Joseph something. And Joseph was trying to do the right thing. Joseph was trying to live a life that honored God. Instead of giving in to Potiphar's wife, Joseph decided to do what was right. Not just one time over, but over and over and over again. Because every time Potiphar's wife came to Joseph with the same invitation, Joseph made the choice to do the right thing. Now, you'd think that'd be because Joseph made the choice to do the right thing, everything would work out great, right? Like God would bless him and he did the right thing over and over and over. Because this right choice was so obvious and clear that you'd probably think it wouldn't cost Joseph anything. You'd probably think it'd all work out. But believe it or not, doing the right thing actually wound up costing Joseph his freedom. And it was a pretty big cost. So you see, Potiphar's wife came to Joseph again with an inappropriate invitation. And only this time, she actually grabbed his cloak. And Joseph tried so hard to do the right thing that he took off running, leaving his cloak in her arms. And because Potiphar's wife had done some already sketchy things and she was already upset, she just started telling everyone around her that Joseph was the one who was trying to have an affair with her. She said that when she screamed for help, Joseph just ran off and left his cloak behind. And of course, you can imagine, Potiphar was not so happy when he heard the story, so that he threw Joseph right into prison. See, this definitely isn't the happy ending you'd expect for someone who chose to do the right thing. You think, God, why did you allow that if he was seeking to honor you? Because, see, sometimes doing the right thing will get you applause and approval, and sometimes it won't. Sometimes it'll come at a cost that's completely unfair. And that's what happened here with Joseph. But Joseph did the right thing because he had integrity. And integrity is doing the right thing regardless of the cost. Doing the right thing regardless of the cost. See, Joseph couldn't see the bigger picture. He didn't know that choosing the right thing would get him thrown into prison. And he didn't know that while in prison, God was still working. God was still creating a beautiful, big picture for his life. But Joseph didn't need to know because he was still operating with integrity. Joseph knew that choosing the right thing was the best decision no matter the cost, no matter what happened next. And that's what we want you to know too. See, I think what we can remember from Joseph's story is when you can't see the bigger picture, do the next right thing. Kind of like the Frozen song. When you can't see the bigger picture, do the next right thing. See, in the moment, Joseph was faced with a choice and he didn't know the bigger picture. He couldn't see it yet, but he still chose to do the next right thing. He still chose to hold on to his integrity. And why does integrity matter? Because Jesus calls us to live a life of integrity that honors him so that we can love him and love others more fully and better. See, it says in Romans 5:3-5, not only this, but we also glory in our sufferings because we know that suffering produces perseverance, character, and character, hope. And hope does not put us to shame because God's love has been poured into our hearts through Christ, the Holy Spirit, who has been given to us. See, choosing the right thing sometimes will cause us to suffer, but ultimately it's creating within us new and helping us become more and more like Jesus. So how do we do that? What do we do if we're struggling to do the next right thing or make the next right choice? How can we hold on to our integrity? First, you can see your situation. What situation are you in right now that you need to do the next right thing? Maybe it's a relationship that started to push boundaries. Maybe it's a conversation that you're avoiding with your parents. Maybe it's a friendship that needs to change. Whatever it is, think about the situation you're in and the next step that you need to take in the right direction. See the situation where you are that you need help in making the right choice. Then, identify the next right thing. Do you need to confess something to a parent? Do you need to ask a friend for help for something? Do you need to apologize to someone in your life? Do you need to try and get along with those that you're stuck in your house with? Or do you need to have a tough conversation with a friend, with a boyfriend, with a girlfriend? In what situation, what's your next right thing? Now here's the deal. It's going to be easy right now to be listening, to think, okay, I know the next right thing. I know what I need to do. And it's even easier to totally forget about it once this video is over and you head back to small group. So there's one final thing I want you to do. I want you to tell the next right thing to someone, and I want you to do it. Talk to your small group leader, a trusted friend, someone at home that you're going to take a next step in the right direction. And it may be hard, it may be easy, but invite them to ask you this week if you actually did it. And that's called accountability. See, accountability is key when following Jesus. It's inviting other people in our lives to ask us the hard questions, to ask us, did you follow through? Are you doing this, to help hold us accountable? And so let them help you. Let them help you take a step in the right direction right now, because taking these steps today is something that's going to help shape our lives for the better tomorrow. And sometimes it's going to feel overwhelming. And maybe you're in a place where you're like, I just keep choosing the wrong thing over and over. Like, Leah, you're saying choose the next right thing. Well, I just keep choosing wrong after wrong after wrong. Guys, it's not too late to turn around. It's not. And it might feel impossible to change directions. Like, I'm stuck here. I can't do anything about it. But it's just about choosing that one right thing at a time. What's right in front of you? What can you choose to do the next right thing? And then after you make that next right thing, choose the next right thing. And the next, and the next. And the cool thing is, guys, that Jesus is right there, right beside you. Whether you've made bad decision, like over and over and over again. He's right there. And we just have to ask him for his strength. We have to ask him for his guidance. and to ask him for his help. And guess what, guys? He's going to show up and he's going to help us. And when we fail, he's going to keep picking us up. And he's going to keep forgiving and offering grace and grace and grace. So remember, you don't have to see the big picture in order to make the right choice. And instead, day by day, when you're faced with all sorts of decisions and choices, you can choose the next right one. And when you can't see the bigger picture, do the next right thing. So as you head to talk and have small group time, think about this question. In what situation do I need to do the next right